Okay, friends, good evening once again. This is an Havron Microsoft Excel tutorial. And this evening, I want to make a short video on data validation, which is part of the module 3 topics that we were discussing. Okay, so we want to find out why we need data validation and how to go about it. You want to build up a database. For our own case, we have the 36 plus 1 states, and we want to populate this table. We want to populate the size of each state using this either large, medium, small, and then also make entries to the economy of each state, whether it's robust or skinny or poor, and then decide for the weather, whether the weather is hot, cold, or just ideal. And in building a database, you want to eliminate data error as much as possible. So how much error your data contains may depend on how you set the data entry from the beginning. So it becomes very important that you do data validation in the cells that you want inputs to be made. So let's see some of the reasons why we need to make data validation. Somebody might decide to say, Kwara is large, so he writes large, and Benue is also large. Then he makes something like this. And then some other person might say, Adamawa is medium, and then Taraba is medium, but he's so much in a hurry, and he goes on this way. When you are looking at this data, you will know that this and this, they mean the same thing. But when you are running data analysis, Excel sees this different from this. So it's going to treat this item different from this. As far as Excel is concerned, these are two different entries. The same thing applies here. And so when you begin to run analysis, you will see this is counting for you what you do not want. So to eliminate such error, you need to make data validation. Clearing this. Data validation is a system you impute in a cell, commanding it not to accept anything other than what you have allowed it to accept. You can tell a cell, nobody should put anything outside this large, medium, and small. Just the way you have imputed it, that is the way they should select it. So if your user comes in to make an entry here, he or she is forced to make a list, to pick up from this list. You can also say that here you don't want this cell to take anything other than numbers. There are some people, if you tell them to choose between 1 to 3, some may put this, others may put this, others may put this. You will read this as 1, 1, 2. But when you're running data analysis with Excel, it sees all these entries as different, and it can introduce error. So you can restrict them to just put in only whole numbers or text, and you may choose to limit them to a list. So we are going to look at that now. Okay, so this is what we are going to use to define our size. So we are going to say whoever that is going to make entry into this cell, the person should just be restricted to either choosing large, medium, or small. So I have selected the cells where I want to make this data validation. I'm going to go to my data tab, which is here. I click it, it opens. I come to my data tools, I open it, and I choose my data validation. By default, every cell is allowed to choose any value, to accept any value. But right now, we are going to restrict it to a list. Then Excel is going to ask you, where is the source of this list? Now, the source of the list, you may have more than these three. You may have more than large, medium, and small. You may have a whole large number of lists. For instance, I've managed a template where the list here comprises of all the 36 plus 1 states. And so it becomes difficult to begin to type them, but you can make reference to a cell or to a range of cells. So for us right now, we have this list here for the sizes. So I'm simply going to collapse this and I'm going to draw this. I've selected these three and I've allowed it to tell me this is the range. I say I'm okay with it. I okay it. When I okay it, all these cells, when you click it, it opens up to this. You can choose large for here. You can choose medium for here. You can choose small here. Wherever you choose, you are restricted to choosing only from that list. Now, remember that when we came here, data validation, we didn't discuss about input, we didn't discuss about error. We are going to discuss that shortly. I'm exiting here. Now, assuming you have shared this template to your users and somebody decides to say, well, this person is medium, and this is how he likes to spell medium. And he has written M-E-D, and he enters. The system will tell it, no. The value he or she has imputed does not match the data validation restriction defined for this cell. So he tries again. He does not want to waste time. He said, my friend, I say it is male. Okay, maybe I didn't use capital M. He puts this and enters. It still returns back. So it has to restrict him to choosing what you have allowed to choose. So he will eventually have to settle down and choose medium. Now, I want to choose these three, these five. Let me isolate these five. What I'm going to operate here will be different from what we are going to operate at the rest cells. So I'm going back to my data. I'm going back to my data validation. And I want to look at the uses of this. Let's see. When I click here, nothing apart from this arc here, this triangle here telling me there is a drop down. But I'm going to impute something else. I come to data validation. This is my input message. So I want to guide my user on what to do when making entries here. So I might just use this as this is help. And I'm going to say, please choose from the list or choose from the drop down list. And then I come under error. I am putting stop. That is why it's not accepting any other input other than from the list. Now, there are three things that we can do here. It's either we use stop or we put warning. So we are putting warning with the yellow cells. And then the warning, we may put something here, we may not put. So let's forget about putting something here. And now we click. Now, if I click my cursor here, it's bringing out this on-screen tip that is going to guide your user on what you want him to do here. So for this is saying, please choose from the drop-down list. So the obedient one will quickly just go in here and begin to choose from the drop-down menu. And then whatever they make here, remember that we have imputed one in here. So this person says, now assuming this is cleared and it is like this, and the person sees it, he says, okay, I don't want to choose. I'm going to write medium because I have seen that they want me to choose either large, medium, or small. And I like to spell my medium in this small way. And he enters. Because we have imputed warning in these yellow cells, this goes to warn the person, look, the value you have put here does not match the validation restrictions defined for this cell. Do you want to continue? If you say yes, that means your wrong entry was deliberate. So you can go ahead and choose yes, and it accepts it. Then here, you say, well, I like to spell large this way. I don't have time. It's still warning you. If you choose no, it will tell you, okay, then re-enter what you want. You say, well, let me just put small. The person will understand that SM is small. And you entered, it still gives you the warning. You go ahead and say, okay. Then the next one, when you decide to cool down, you pick no alert, no warning, you pick no query, no stop, you pick. So we have done this for the yellow using warning. Now let's choose another set of 5 data cells. And this time we are going to use, let's say, this. And we are going to a data validation, data validation. And now it is stop. So let's allow this stop here. So what do we put here? Our input we say clue. You must choose from the list displayed. I'm writing different things. It may be different from you. It may be different for you, depending on what you want to see. And for our error alert, it is stop. So we okay it. This is the clue. But what we put here is help. Please choose from the drop-down list. Here, you must choose from the list display. However, when you are making this, you need to be a bit polite because you don't know who the list may eventually get to and say, why is this guy commanding me? Okay, so I just put this for demonstration. Now, you are supposed to choose as you are being directed. But the other ones will say no. Let me even write wicked for this person because it's wicked. And he puts wicked and enters. This does not give you the option of saying yes or no. He said this value does not match. That's all. Just telling you stop. You can retry and it opens and you enter again, it will not accept it. So for stop, it's not going to accept until you have done the right thing or you cancel. So this one, you are telling the person you must choose. Now we go to the third one. We are using another color, say green. Let's say light green. You come to your data again, your data validation. And now we have talked about warning. Now let's pick information. You can choose to write anything here, but for our purpose, we are leaving it blank. Now, I decide to write Avron here rather than choosing from inside. Now, it's just telling you, it's just giving you an information. The value you have put here does not meet the data validation restriction defined for this cell. You say, okay, this is polite, it's going to accept it. It's not asking you whether you want to change it or not. It's just merely informing you. So when you say, okay, you are aware that you have made a wrong input. So you click or you fill the remaining one. The same thing is done for the entire cell. Now, when this is submitted to you and you want to run your analysis, you will now come to here. Because you have set this data validation, and probably there are over 1,000 or 2,000 or 5,000 records down this column, or several other columns. We can wait to enter this economy and weather before running our data error checks. So you simply come to this point and you want to circle all the invalid data, you can't begin to scrutinize and say here, okay, this one is wrong, this one is wrong, where again? You go down, you say, where are the other? And then you start checking everything one after the other. Excel has a way of identifying all the invalid data. So you simply come to this point, you are looking for all the invalid data. When you click this, it circles all the entries that did not meet the criteria set. See them? And this is very, very important when you know that your data, for instance now, there might be a situation where a state may have something different from what you have set. Probably you are only limited to large, medium, and small. And then there might be another one, maybe very small. And very small is something that is well taken in that region. Maybe very region is also recognized as a size. And so they have imputed very small region here. So this helps you to now query, why did this person make this entry? You can now contact this state or the person who made this entry and then try to find out, hey, bros, this thing is different from what happened? And then he will tell you, yes, this is what happened, this is what happened. You say, okay. So you will now sort this out. You sort this out also, all the areas where you have this data, invalid data entries, which have been highlighted. When you are done sorting them out, you simply come back to this point and you clear them and your data is clean. And then you can now work on the data. If after asking each of these states that have that invalid data errors, if you're not satisfied, you tell them, please, I'm changing this for you. Please, I am changing this for you. And then you can go and clear validation circles. Okay, so we have taken one way of making your data validation. Now, I am going to remove the data validation that I've set in here. How do you do that? I have highlighted all the places where I have the data validation. I'm going ahead to click here, and I'm going to click my data validation. Now, I have this warning. It's saying the selection contains more than one type of validation. This means that where I have selected another cell which may not contain data validation. Now, let's see if that is the case. When we scroll down, it is possible there are places that have different data set, data validation. So it's telling you that whatever you want to do here now is going to be different. Okay, so you know that we chose different thing here. We chose different thing here, even though it's medium and co, but they have different settings. So we can go ahead and accept that. Data validation, we accept. So what we want is clean. So we clear everything that we have done, and then everything returns back to normal. So I delete all this. Now, I usually tell people when I am building up a list for my data validation, I usually would like to rename those cells. And I usually will want to hide those cells. So this is what we are going to use. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to create a new sheet, and I'm going to drop it here. Okay? This is what I have done. This is still here. So let me just go ahead and clear this. I've cleared this. but I'm still going to make my data validation. So I come to this point here. I usually name it input sheet. Now, in Excel basics, there is a system of renaming your cells or range of cells, and that will be found in your data name or name manager. So what I'm going to do is, if I click here, this is showing me that it's A2. If I click here, it's A3. If I click here, it's A4. If I click and select these three, it's just going to tell me the first cell that I started from. So since what we want to get as our list is these three, I'm going to name these three cells together. So what do? This is our name bar. I click here. I want to name it size. Size. And I enter. So if I click here, it's still A2. Click here, A3. Click here, A4. But if I click all of them, it's telling me this is size. Great. So let me also rename these three as economy. And then I go here to rename them as weather. Good. Now, as far as this entire workbook is concerned, these names, size, economy, and weather, it's already captured in the name database of this workbook. So I am going back to this point, and I'm going to say all this. I want to set data validation for them. So I go here, I come to my data validation, I click this. By default, it is any value, remember? So I am going to choose list. Excel is still going to ask me, what is my source? And because this, all this column will be size. So I'm going to put equals to size. I'm no longer going to click and select the entire list. I'm going to click this. It has accepted it. So when I click anyone, it's going to be giving me the options of those items captured under size. The same thing happens here. I select all this, and I am doing my data validation here. I am aligned only lists. It's asking me what's the source. It's economy. Economy goods. The same thing here. Data validation. Allow a list. What is it? Is weather. Now, I want to point out something here. If you write a word or the name of a range of cell that does not exist, it will tell you you could not find it. For instance, assuming I was typing fast and I had to type this without the R and I say enter, it's going to tell you that the named range that you specify cannot be found. I will okay it, and I have to repeat. I'll look at my spelling and say, okay, I missed an R. I enter. Now for here, it's giving me whether it's hot or cold or ideal. And for the economy, remember what it's defined is either it's robust or skinny or poor. So this is how to set your data validation for a list, and then how to check your data error. Now, I want to also talk about a dynamic list. Assuming that when people made wrong entries, and then you realize that there ought to be another medium, say X large. What I mean here is there are some things you see, you have large, you have X, you have X large, you have XX large, then you have medium, then you have small, assuming this. Now, what you simply do is, this is where creating a name range becomes useful. What we need to do is, we can say this is our updated list. So we just copy this. You have made a new list, and then go back to your inputs. Since we're talking about size, you can drop all of them here. So this is your new size. However, your name that has been captured in this workbook does not contain all this. So now you need to update it. You come to your formula, you come to name manager. We are looking for size. Where is my size here? This is arranged alphabetically. Okay, this is my size here. Size, what do you want to do with size? Name, I want to edit it. You click this and this. It tells you that this name, this range is found in this input sheet, which is here, and it is found between A2 and A4. You can see it's already dancing here, indicating where it is named. But because you want to edit it, collapse this, and then use your cursor to go and select to include where you want. I have increased this because it allowed me to edit, because I told it I want to edit. So I'm done. This has increased. So I click this. That's all. I am done. So when I go back to this sheet, and I have to make input here, I will see my large, I will see my extra large, I will see my XS large, I will see my medium, I will see my small. Note that this is arranged the same way you arranged it in your input sheet. If you want it to be in alphabetical order, all we need to do is to select all of them, come to your, either your home tab or you come to your data tab here and click this. So if you click this, it's going to likely, it may likely affect this because there is no empty column here. So you might see the entire entries here as a table. So I click this. It sees it as a table, as a continuous table. So it's telling you that it has noticed that there is a entry, there are entries beside it. Do you want to expand your selection? No, we just want it to continue with the current selection. So I click this and I sort. This is now sorted in alphabetical order, LMS before X. So when we go back here, we are going to see this thing sorted in LMS, X and XX large. So this is what we can do with data validation as far as a list is concerned. The next thing we would like to discuss now is the whole number. I'm still going to talk about this dependable drop-down list. But let's talk about whole number. Now, let's remove this data validation that we have set here. I'm going to click here, data validation. I'm going to clear. But right now, I want to impute another kind of restriction. And I want a whole number. And I want to allow my user to make an input between 30 and 40, for instance. I click. From what we have learned before, if I run a data check here, it's going to highlight this. Say, for instance, I come here, I say, please circle all the invalid data. It's going to highlight all of them. Why? Because these are not whole numbers. They are text. So I clear them, I delete them. So if I put 23 here, it's going to say no. It does not match. I said, okay. What about 30? He said yes. What about 30? He said yes. What about 29? He says no. Okay. So can you accept 40? He will accept. What about 67? He says no. So you are restricting entries. You want them to enter values that you have set. And these values may be, for instance, if you are looking at the body temperature of humans, you might say, okay, we want to look at the minimum is 30, the maximum is 40. Anything above them, the system should not accept. And then it goes forth like that. So I'm going to leave this rest for you to look at the other components that can be allowed. The decimal, dates, time, text length. There are times you want people to put in, you don't want them to speak grammar. There are people, if you ask them, what is your name? They might begin to tell you the life history of how they have gone to school and so you want to limit them. You say, please, I want you to limit your distance between so and so. And by the time the person has finished writing or there won't be space there, you will not accept it. Okay, so I want you to look, take a simple tour around them, and then you can get a grasp of what data validation is. All right, so the other thing that I want to discuss is this dependable drop-down list. Now, you may have a situation where, for instance, now, let me take these two states, for instance. I've copied them. I'm going to use my transpose, okay? So let me just come this way. And for Quara, I'm going to have a Lorraine. I'm going to have, I don't really know the different local governments in Ilorin. Say Ilorin, Kayama, okay, something like this. And then for Benue, we have Makodi, we have Boko. Good. So we want people to be able to choose from a list. Now, if we make state here, we want people to choose. Let me make this now, that's this data validation to allow a list between, to allow a list between Quara and Benue. By the way, this is another way you can do your list when it is small and just for a brief operation. So I have here, you can choose Quara, you can choose Benue. Good. So here, we want local government, LGA here. We want what will be displayed here to be dependent on what is chosen here. So I want to set this cell to give me a list that contains Makodi and Boko, if here is Benue, or for here to display Ilorin and Kayama, if this place is Quara. So what I need to do is I'll come here and I say, sorry, I'll still need to go to my data validation. I'm going to put allow list. Here, I'm going to put indirect. I'm going to open this. Indirect is a function. So what I want is, I'm going to click here, and that is all. It's telling you that the source that you currently, that you have chosen currently evaluates to an error. Do you want to continue? I want to continue. So let's see what we have here. There is nothing here. Okay, let's see this. Let's see what we got here. Indirect H. Okay. We need to build this name. This is Benway. So we are going to name this as Benway. Then we are going to name here as Quara. Good. So when we come here, we have Quara here because this Quara has a name in the name manager here. And that name is defined by these two local government. So if you have Quara here will display those local governments that are under Quara. If here were to be Benway, here will open Makurdi and Boko. So this is also another way that you can set your data validation for a drop-down list that is dependent on a value of another. So this is where we end this tutorial on data validation. We'd like to have your feedbacks on this. If there is something you didn't understand or while trying to apply it in your workplace, you can let us have your feedback and then we'll get a response back to you. Thank you for watching.